Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. Trying something a little different there. Um, Today's movie is Three Men and a Baby. This is the classic 1987. 87, yes. Hour and 42 minutes long. This, so 80s. It is a Touchstone Pictures movie, so it's technically not Disney. It's owned by Disney. That's why it's on here. And it's basically the story of three bachelors who are somehow roommates, despite their um, advanced age. Let's just say at this point, I imagine they're in their 30s, 40s. I don't know. I don't know. These guys have always seemed like elder statesmen to me, not old. They're older now. It stars Tom Selleck, Ted Danson, and Steve Guttenberg as the titular three men. They're bachelors who exist to just go through lots and lots of women. Uh, Ted Danson, sorry, not Ted Danson. Tom Selleck has an open relationship with his girlfriend. He, yeah, he gets around. Then we have Ted Danson, who has all sorts. He's an, by the way, Tom Selleck is an actor. I'm sorry, is an architect. He, if you don't know who Ted Danson, I'm sorry, if you don't know who Tom Selleck is, Magnum PI, much older. He's also on Blue Bloods now, I guess. Got the mustache, so that's who he was. He was almost Indiana Jones at one point. Anyway, he's an architect, and he pretty much can get all the women he wants. Ted Danson, on the other hand, is also a ladies' man, but he's not really good with them. They pretty much show up and don't stick around because he treats them poorly. If you know who Ted Danson is, at this time he is part of one of the biggest shows on television in the '80s, Cheers, playing Sam Malone, and he is most recently you would know him from The Good Place as Michael. And we had Steve Guttenberg. Steve Guttenberg at this point is probably best known for his Police Academy movies. He's like the main guy in all those movies, even though it's a big cast. He's the main character, and you've seen him most recently on stuff like Goldberg's, Ballers, things like that. Anyway, by the way, yeah, Ted Danson treats him like crap, and they move on. Steve Guttenberg gets women show up, but then he ends up being their big brother and solving their relationships, and they end up going back to their exes. So these are three guys who, while they have plenty of women in their life, they're fairly dysfunctional about it, or at least thinking pretty much only of themselves in every situation. One of Jack's friends, played by Ted Danson, Jack, while at a party, says, "Hey, I have a package coming. Could you accept it at your place while I'm out of town?" And Jack doesn't tell him that, by the way, he's also going to be out of town because he's an actor and he's going to go off and do a shoot in Turkey or something. So next morning, his two roommates who are left behind find a package on their front doorstep, and it's a baby named Mary. And they have no idea where this came from. The note says that it's from a woman that Jack slept with at one point, a little more than a year ago, and she figures, let's just drop that baby off and you take care of it now. This doesn't sit well with Jack's friends, who scramble. The comedy from this, by the way, this is a comedy. They scramble, knowing nothing about babies, figuring out how to feed them, clean them, or her, feed her, clean her, keep her from crying constantly. They know absolutely nothing, and the comedy comes from them being very fish out of water and trying to discover and how to take care of a baby when their lives have always been just about them. Well, about the same time, a little bit after the baby shows up, another package arrives, and it's pretty much ignored. It's just tossed off to the side. And this is where the problem comes. The package that Jack was expecting wasn't the baby, and it nobody was expecting the baby. It was the other package, which happens to be filled with the biggest star of most 80s films, cocaine. Actually, sorry, heroin. When some guys come to collect it, there's a little bit of confusion, and that's when the story, the tension arises, where these guys who are handling a baby are now trying to keep themselves from being arrested for drug smuggling. So, yeah, that's the big main gist of the film. I'm not going to go into any more detail on this. There's a chance that you may have not watched this. May not have interested you if you're not from the 80s. But if you want to see a world without cell phones and so much big hair and just questionable fashion, yeah. And three men sharing an apartment. I actually looked up the location when I saw them. One of Tom Selleck entering the building, I was able to lock down their location. It's west side of Central Park. It is not inexpensive. There's no such thing as an inexpensive spot in New York City. But this, even in the 80s, was... These three guys had to be making crazy amounts of cash to be able to even afford to share an apartment the size of this. So yeah. Hey. It's a fun movie. It's really heartfelt. It's really, it's really sweet. I was surprised that the main storyline tied up, the conflict with the drug dealers, tied up with a half an hour nearly to go in the film. So be aware of that. Yes, there is more drama to come, and you can pretty much guess what's going to happen, because as these guys go from selfish to selfless and get really attached to Mary, what's the one thing that can happen to pull them apart? I'm not going to say. If you can't figure that out, well, then whatever. But yeah, it's a sweet film. It's funny. The guys are great in it, and it may not be part of your what you'd want to watch on any given night, but if you haven't seen this movie in a long time, if you're my age, it's a nice little retreat back to that era. I honestly can't remember if I watched this. I feel like I have, but I didn't remember even the drugs story. I didn't remember that. Like, it's the kind of thing that I don't know if I would have gone to see in 1987, but I feel like I would have. Like, it would have shown up on HBO or something at some point. Anyway, one of the big controversies I have to mention before I go is there's supposed to be a ghost in this movie. There isn't, but there's an urban legend that has to do with it. About an hour and 1 minute into this movie, I checked it out because I knew it was coming, and it's been an urban legend since I was a kid. So about an hour into this film, there's a scene where Ted Danson and his mom are walking through the apartment. And you see them go from room to room, and in one of the windows, you see what looks like a reflection of a boy, a ghostly boy in the window, just standing there, and people assume it's like the ghost of a dead boy who lived in that house where they were shooting, and that's he was there to haunt them. And since people didn't really, it grew to fame in a time when video rental started becoming a regular thing on VHS, and people would see that, they'd freeze frame it. And by the way, this was before the internet, so nobody could really talk about it on the internet, but it still was an urban legend that people spread around, and people would rent this movie just to see if they could find the ghost boy. Well, guess what? Here's the truth. I did a little research on this because I knew about it and I wanted to address it here. It's actually a standee, like a cardboard cutout of Ted Danson in a tuxedo wearing a top hat. It's a reference to him he's an actor, so he did a commercial dressed as this, and there was a standee. It was for a dog food commercial or something like that, and it just happens to be placed there in the scene. And actually, if you watch the movie, you can see that standee in two different other scenes, at least that I saw, at least two other scenes. So yeah, you can see very clearly it's Ted Danson in a top hat. There's no ghost. And by the way, to really drive that fact home, it was not shot in a house or an apartment. It's a studio set. So yeah, it's while they're moving from room to room. Yeah, there's no house to be haunted. It's a set in a lot in Hollywood or New York, actually. Probably at this point, I have no idea because all their exteriors were New York, real New York. So I imagine the interiors they did in New York as well, possibly. Don't know. Anyway, also, one of the big trivia pieces that I was really amazed about, I forgot all about this. This is directed by Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock from Star Trek. So that's kind of cool. I mean, he probably just before this, he had directed Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. So, yeah, and then he went on to do 3 Men and a Baby. That's really just neat little trivia. You know, Mr. Spock doing 3 Men and a Baby Disney movie. All right, here we go. I'm going to pick tomorrow's episode.
12.
12? Well, dropping way down there. Come on. Come on. Keep going. Oh, we already had 12. Again, we're going to get this at least until next week sometime when we reboot on October 1st. But number 12, just so you can see, was... What was 12? Kid in King Arthur's Court? Is that what it was? No. No, it was... Oh, A Very Merry Pooh Year. Okay. Let's pick another one.
465.
465. Didn't we just have 465? No, I can't, because this actually does prevent it from anything from being picked twice. Unless it doesn't know about the stuff we did before I got this, so obviously. 465. Oh, we had 465. There it is. 465 was Rip Girls. Yeah, we're not watching that again. Rip Girls. All right.
260.
260. This seems familiar also. Can't wait till we don't have to deal with this anymore. And these videos will be much shorter. 260. We haven't seen this yet. And actually, I was wondering when we were going to get to it. This is one of 2 films in this series. They didn't make a third one. But, yeah. I think it's Matthew Broderick starring as Inspector Gadget. 260. Inspector Gadget. All right. Okay. You know what? I don't think I've seen it. I'm pretty sure I haven't seen Inspector Gadget, so I guess that's what we'll be watching tomorrow on the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. Inspector Gadget. See you here.